When it comes to love, age is often seen as a barrier. But in many cases, it's exactly what makes the bond stronger. Attraction doesn't always align with what's expected, and when a younger man falls deeply for an older woman, the emotional connection often transcends superficial attraction. It becomes a source of personal growth, emotional intimacy, and deep respect. But how can you tell when a man's heart truly belongs to an older woman? The answer lies not just in what he does, but in what he says. Words reveal emotions that actions can sometimes conceal, especially when those words surface unintentionally, in raw, unfiltered moments. These expressions aren't merely casual compliments. They're deeply rooted in admiration, vulnerability, and emotional resonance. Let's explore the first 3 powerful phrases that consistently appear in age gap relationships and why they matter so much. 1. I feel safe with you. At first glance, this phrase might seem simple, maybe even unexpected. Society often teaches us that men are supposed to be the protectors, the strong ones, the emotional anchors in a relationship. So when a man tells an older woman, I feel safe with you, he's revealing something far deeper than meets the eye. This isn't about physical safety. It's not about protection from danger. What he's talking about is emotional safety, the freedom to let his guard down. The presence of a mature woman often creates a sense of calm stability that younger partners may not yet have developed. She's weathered emotional storms, navigated heartbreak, and learned how to self-soothe. This groundedness becomes an emotional sanctuary for the man who finds himself in love with her. When he utters this phrase, he's really saying, I don't have to pretend around you. I can be vulnerable without fear. You create a space where I feel emotionally held. In practical terms, this shows up in the way he opens up. He might talk more about his fears, childhood experiences, or ambitions. He's not afraid to cry in front of her or express uncertainty. He may become more physically affectionate, seeking closeness not just for desire, but for reassurance. The relationship becomes his emotional home. This phrase is perhaps the most vulnerable one a man can say because it admits a need for comfort, something rarely associated with traditional masculinity. And when he finds it in an older woman, it creates a profound connection built on mutual trust. 2. You get me like nobody else does. There's a difference between being heard and being understood. The second phrase that often slips out when a man is deeply connected to an older woman is, you get me like nobody else does. This is an incredibly meaningful confession. It reflects emotional intimacy and deep connection on a level that surpasses physical attraction or surface compatibility. When a man says this, what he's truly acknowledging is that she doesn't just listen. She understands. She sees the layers beneath his behavior. She recognizes when he's masking insecurity with humor or when his silence means he's processing something deeply. Why does this happen more frequently with older women? Because they tend to have developed strong emotional intelligence, recognize emotional cues more accurately, respond with empathy instead of judgment. This understanding often comes from years of navigating complex human dynamics, both in relationships and personal development. An older woman may have raised children, led teams, experienced grief, or gone through transformations that taught her how to truly see people, not just react to them. When he says, you get me like nobody else does, he's not complimenting her communication skills. He's recognizing her as someone who validates his internal world. This validation is deeply bonding. It often happens during meaningful conversations, especially when he's sharing fears or experiences that others have dismissed or misunderstood. And that's the magic. When a man feels emotionally recognized, he begins to attach on a level far deeper than chemistry. It's about emotional resonance, being seen not as an ideal version of himself, but as his full, flawed, complex self, and still being embraced. 3. I can't imagine my life without you now. This phrase may appear early in an age gap relationship, and it can catch both partners off guard with its intensity. When a man says, I can't imagine my life without you now, he's voicing something profoundly serious, that she's become part of his vision for the future. As we continue our exploration into the subtle and powerful language that reveals a man's emotional devotion to an older woman, we move into even deeper psychological and relational territory. The first three phrases: I feel safe with you. You get me like nobody else does. And I can't imagine my life without you now. Highlight the beginning stages of emotional vulnerability, understanding, and vision building. Now we move forward into expressions that reveal how the relationship starts to shape him, how it transforms not only how he feels, but who he's becoming. These next three phrases shed light on the personal growth, emotional depth, and seriousness of intention that come from being loved by someone with experience and wisdom. 4. You make me want to be better. This phrase stands out because it's not about what she gives him. It's about what she inspires in him. When a man says, "You make me want to be better," he's expressing the influence her presence has on his evolution. This isn't about inadequacy or feeling like he's not good enough. Quite the opposite. It's about feeling seen in a way that motivates him to rise, not out of obligation, but from admiration. Older women often have a well-developed sense of purpose. They've built careers, learned life lessons, and carry themselves with intention. This creates a natural standard of emotional maturity, and it can be incredibly inspiring for a younger man who is still defining his own path. When he says this phrase, he might be referencing things like wanting to get more serious about his goals, trying to communicate more clearly and empathetically, developing better habits such as discipline or emotional regulation. This phrase is essentially a sign that her influence is making a real internal impact. He doesn't just love her, he admires her. He respects the way she handles herself, how she thinks, and how she treats people. Her presence is not only comforting, it's motivating. In this dynamic, love becomes a catalyst. She's not asking him to change, but her example shows him what's possible, and he wants to rise to meet it. 5. I tell my mom about you. This may seem like a simple or even playful phrase, but its emotional weight is enormous. When a man says, "I tell my mom about you," he's making a powerful statement about how seriously he views the relationship. For many men, their relationship with their mother carries deep emotional significance. The act of talking about a romantic partner with their mom reflects a level of seriousness, pride, and long-term thinking. In the context of a relationship with an older woman, it becomes even more meaningful. Why? Because in many cases, age gap relationships face societal scrutiny or misunderstanding. For a man to bring his older partner into family conversations means he's not hiding the relationship. He wants his family to know who she is. He respects her enough to introduce her into his closest circle. This phrase is an indicator of both emotional transparency and future vision. It shows that he doesn't view the relationship as a temporary or secret experience. He's placing her in his personal narrative, the story he tells about his life, his choices, and his future. If the age difference might raise eyebrows in his family, especially with his mother, saying this phrase also shows that he's ready to defend the relationship if necessary. It means he trusts his mother to understand what he sees in his partner, and he trusts his partner enough to speak about her with honor and affection. For the older woman, hearing this phrase can be incredibly affirming. It reveals that she's not being kept in the shadows due to the age difference. She's being valued, acknowledged, and emotionally integrated into his life. 6. You're the only person I can talk to about this. This phrase is where intimacy deepens into exclusivity, not in a possessive way, but in terms of emotional trust. When a man says, "You're the only person I can talk to about this," he's declaring that she has become his primary confidant. That is a profound emotional role. This doesn't just happen because they've spent time together. It happens because she has proven to be a source of wisdom, discretion, and non-judgmental insight. It speaks to the depth of trust he places in her. This phrase tends to emerge in moments of real-life complexity, like career crossroads or failures, family drama or pressure, emotional confusion or self-doubt. The older woman in this scenario is often more than a romantic partner. She becomes a guide, a listener, and in many cases, a grounding voice that helps him process his life. This kind of role typically isn't given lightly. It has to be earned through emotional presence, patience, and understanding. When he says, "You're the only one I can talk to," it also means he feels emotionally safe. He believes in her capacity to understand complexity. He sees her as someone whose input truly matters. This isn't about him being dependent or emotionally needy. It's about emotional exclusivity, the fact that he doesn't feel this level of connection or comfort with anyone else. And that's huge. Often, younger men are surrounded by friends who are supportive, but not deeply introspective. The emotional depth and life perspective of an older woman provides something unique, a capacity to hear what's not being said, to hold emotional space without rushing to fix or dismiss. This phrase is often the quiet start of a relationship that moves from deep affection into lasting partnership. It's no longer just about what he feels, it's about who he turns to when things really matter. The power behind the words. Let's pause for a moment to understand what these three phrases really reveal. Not just about how he sees her, but how the relationship is changing him. You make me want to be better. Growth through inspiration. I tell my mom about you. Some pride and long-term seriousness. You're the only person I can talk to about this. I'm deep. Emotional trust and reliance. These aren't just lines. These are emotional milestones. They indicate that the relationship has moved from affection to integration, from excitement to stability, from attraction to trust. And in age gap relationships, where the foundation is often rooted in emotional depth rather than societal approval, these phrases matter even more. They tell the story of a man who is not just enamored, but evolving. As we continue uncovering the most revealing phrases, a man speaks when he is genuinely in love. With an older woman, the emotional landscape becomes even richer and more profound. The earlier phrases, "You make me want to be better," "I tell my mom about you," and "You're the only person I can talk to about this," reflect inner transformation, relational integration, and exclusive emotional intimacy. But now we enter a territory where love defies expectations and challenges convention. These next three phrases aren't just reflections of what he feels, they're declarations. They reveal the courage it takes to love against the grain, the awe of encountering something entirely new, and the bittersweet ache of time lost. 7. I don't care what people think. This phrase is not spoken casually, especially in a relationship that challenges social norms, like one with a significant age difference. When a man says, "I don't care what people think," he's not just defending the relationship. He's affirming it with strength and conviction. There's a powerful sense of emotional maturity in this statement. Why? Because it shows he's reached a point where the value of the connection outweighs the fear of judgment. Society often has strong opinions about relationships that don't fit the mold, especially when a younger man is with an older woman. Whether it's side glances in public, unsolicited advice from friends, or subtle disapproval from family, there can be real pressure to conform. But when a man boldly declares that he doesn't care, he is choosing authenticity over conformity, prioritizing love over perception, standing in emotional integrity. This phrase typically emerges after the relationship has deepened, when the emotional, intellectual, and physical bond has become undeniable. He may have faced skepticism from peers or endured awkward questions, but by this point, he's no longer swayed by it. He knows what he has is real. What makes this phrase even more meaningful is that it often comes unsolicited, a spontaneous declaration, in response to nothing in particular. It's his way of saying, "I know this might raise eyebrows, and I still choose you." This kind of emotional defiance isn't rooted in rebellion. It's rooted in clarity. He's experienced something so rare and powerful that the opinions of others fade into irrelevance. 8. I've never felt this way before. This phrase signals that he's entered uncharted emotional territory. When a man says, "I've never felt this way before," it means he's not just in love, he's experiencing a kind of connection that redefines what love even means to him. This is not a cliché. It's not the honeymoon phase talking. It's a deeply personal admission that what he's feeling is unlike anything in his past. Here's why this matters so much in the context of a relationship with an older woman. Older women often bring depth, emotional maturity, and a calm presence that he may never have encountered before. She likely approaches the relationship with greater intentionality, clarity and stability. The emotional safety, thoughtful communication, and mutual respect may be profoundly different from what he's used to, and he feels it. This phrase often arises after a particularly meaningful moment, maybe after a long, intimate conversation, an act of unexpected kindness, or simply a moment of quiet understanding. It's as if something clicks inside him, and suddenly, the love he thought he knew is eclipsed by something bigger, deeper, truer. When he says, "I've never felt this way before," he's also acknowledging that she evokes a version of himself he didn't know existed, that the connection has reached emotional depths he never imagined, that his previous relationships now feel incomplete in comparison. This phrase doesn't just describe the relationship, it redefines it. It sets the older woman apart in his emotional memory as a first, not just in age but in significance. 9. I wish we'd met sooner. At first, this phrase might seem bittersweet or even paradoxical in an age gap relationship. But when a man says, "I wish we'd met sooner," he's expressing something far deeper than a desire to turn back time. He's mourning the lost time they didn't get to share together. Not because of her age, but because of the love he's discovered now. This is not about wishing she were younger. It's about wishing their connection had been given more time to grow. It reflects his deep appreciation of her presence in his life, a longing for a fuller shared history, a desire to experience more milestones, more memories, more life together. This phrase may surface during quiet moments, while reminiscing, while looking through old photos, or even during simple everyday routines that suddenly feel precious. It's a moment of emotional clarity that says, "I cherish you so much, I wish we had more of this." It also subtly points to something profound. He sees a future with her. He's not thinking of their relationship as limited or temporary. On the contrary, he's already imagining years of memories they might still make, and mourning the ones they missed. This kind of emotional sentiment is rare. It shows not only love, but reverence, a recognition that what they have is so valuable. It makes him greedy for time. And that's one of the most touching signs of all. What these 3 phrases reveal about his heart. Let's break it down. I don't care what people think. Defiance in the name of authenticity. I've never felt this way before. Emotional awakening and depth. I wish we'd met sooner. Gratitude mixed with longing and vision. Together, these phrases speak volumes. They reveal a man who has chosen love over public opinion, is experiencing emotional depth that surprises even him, longs not for someone different, but for more time with the one he has. In age gap relationships, these phrases mark a pivotal emotional turning point. He's not just in the relationship, he's invested, not just romantically involved, but transformed. This is where love becomes legacy, where the connection starts to feel not just passionate, but permanent. These aren't words spoken to impress, they're emotional truths that surface when someone realizes they've found something exceptional. We've traveled through the powerful emotional terrain that defines a man's devotion to an older woman, how it shows up in his vulnerability, admiration, emotional defiance, and longing. Now, we arrive at the final, most intimate stages of emotional expression. These next 2 phrases are not about flirtation, charm, or even just love. They're about identity and transformation. When a man says these things, he's revealing the core impact the relationship has had on him, not just how he feels about her, but how he feels about himself because of her. That's a level of love that doesn't fade. It marks him. 10. I can be myself around you. This phrase is deceptively simple, but in the world of romantic connection, especially for men, this is one of the rarest and most meaningful confessions. When a man says, "I can be myself around you," what he's really expressing is this: "You've given me the freedom to stop performing." So many men, whether consciously or unconsciously, wear emotional armor. They carry expectations of strength, composure, confidence, and control. In many relationships, they feel the need to edit themselves, present a curated version of who they are, to maintain attraction, avoid conflict, or fit a mold. But with an older woman, something different often happens. She's lived long enough to know that authenticity beats performance. She's likely let go of unrealistic expectations and embraced the complexity of human nature, hers and others. As a result, she often brings an accepting, grounded presence that says, "You don't have to be anything but real here." This acceptance creates a sacred emotional space. And within that space, a man can finally speak without filtering, feel without hiding, admit fears, flaws, and failures without shame. When he says, "I can be myself around you," it's not a casual compliment. It's a declaration of emotional safety. It means she has seen his whole self, the polished parts, and the messy parts, and still embraces him fully. And for many men, that is life-changing. In practice, this might look like laughing without trying to be impressive, expressing emotion without fear of judgment, admitting confusion or uncertainty without needing to fix it immediately. This phrase reveals not only that he trusts her, but that he feels free with her. And freedom in love, that's where the deepest intimacy lives. 11. You've changed me. This phrase is the summit, the emotional apex, the final, irrefutable sign that this love is not just something he's experiencing, it's something that's transforming him. When a man says, "You've changed me," it's not always in a dramatic, movie-worthy moment. It may come in quiet reflection, after noticing how he reacts differently to conflict, how his priorities have shifted, or how much more in tune he is with himself. He's not saying he's changed for her. That would imply effort or compromise. He's saying something even more powerful. "Your presence, just as you are, has made me more of who I want to be." Older women often bring clarity and wisdom that inspire reflection and growth. They lead not by pushing, but by modeling emotional intelligence, self-respect, and calm confidence, and that energy is contagious. What kind of changes are we talking about? He might communicate more openly and calmly, reprioritize his time to focus on purpose and peace, let go of toxic masculinity and embrace emotional honesty, begin therapy, new creative pursuits, or healthier relationships. This phrase often arrives after he's noticed the difference in himself and realized, "I'm evolving. I'm more grounded. I'm more honest." And it's because of her. It's not about being whipped or changed in a negative way, which some people wrongly assume in transformational relationships. It's about awakening, expansion, maturity. And that is a kind of love that doesn't fade. It integrates into his identity. From love to legacy. These final two phrases, "I can be myself around you," and "You've changed me," are not fleeting expressions. They represent a love that doesn't just add to his life, it restructures it. Here's what they really reveal. He no longer feels the need to impress, posture, or pretend. He sees this relationship as a turning point in his personal growth. He recognizes that this love has elevated every other part of his life. With these two phrases, the relationship becomes not just meaningful, but pivotal. She isn't just someone he loves. She's someone who altered the trajectory of his emotional life. Here's the summary of the 11 phrases that reveal his heart. Let's recap the full emotional journey we've explored. 1. I feel safe with you. Emotional sanctuary. 2. You get me like nobody else does. Deep understanding. 3. I can't imagine my life without you now. Long-term attachment. 4. You make me want to be better. Inspired personal growth. 5. I tell my mom about you. Family integration and pride. 6. You're the only person I can talk to about this. Exclusive emotional trust. 7. I don't care what people think. Defiance in the name of love. 8. I've never felt this way before. Emotional novelty and depth. 9. I wish we'd met sooner, longing for more shared time. 10. I can be myself around you. Emotional authenticity. 11. You've changed me. Identity level transformation. Each of these phrases represents a stage of emotional progression, from safety to admiration, from pride to personal evolution. And what makes them so powerful is that they're not spoken to flatter. They're felt deeply, and they arise naturally when a man finds himself connected to a woman who offers more than attraction. She offers meaning. We've explored the 11 most revealing phrases that expose when a man's heart truly belongs to an older woman. These aren't just romantic words. They are emotional revelations, statements that escape his lips when he feels seen, safe, inspired, and profoundly connected. But what do these phrases mean beneath the surface? And how can we distinguish between passing affection and enduring, transformative love? In this final part, we'll dive into the psychology behind these expressions, what they reveal about the man, what they give to the woman, and how they evolve in a long-term relationship. Understanding the psychology of emotional language. When a man falls in love with an older woman, his emotional vocabulary often expands, not because she teaches him what to say, but because the connection touches deeper parts of his psyche that haven't been accessed before. These phrases are not conscious strategies. They're emotional confessions that surface when certain psychological conditions are met. 1. Emotional safety. Phrases like, I feel safe with you, or I can be myself around you, emerge when a man feels secure, both emotionally and psychologically. This happens when he's no longer afraid of judgment, punishment, or ridicule. He can be vulnerable without fearing that his honesty will cost him love. Older women often foster this safety because they are emotionally grounded, value honesty over ego, respond with compassion instead of control. 2. Identity resonance. Statements like, you've changed me and you get me like nobody else does, reflect mirroring, a powerful psychological experience where one person sees, validates, and accepts another so deeply that the person begins to evolve. The man begins to feel not only loved, but understood. And that is a form of emotional healing that many people spend a lifetime searching for. 3. Integration into the self. When a man says, I can't imagine my life without you now, it means the relationship has become part of his identity. She's not just someone he's with. She's part of his story, part of how he sees the world, and part of how he sees himself moving forward. This level of connection rarely forms quickly in surface-level relationships. But when emotional depth, life perspective, and mutual respect are present, it happens more swiftly and with more intensity. What these phrases mean for her. While these phrases reveal a man's feelings, they also serve as emotional gifts to the older woman hearing them. For her, they represent validation, that her age, wisdom, and life experience are not only accepted, they're cherished. Security, that this isn't a fling or a fascination. It's a connection rooted in truth. Freedom, to love without constantly wondering whether he's serious or just experimenting. In a world where older women are often underestimated or overlooked in romantic narratives, hearing these phrases can be deeply affirming. They break the tired stereotypes and offer proof that mature love isn't only possible, it's transformational. Recognizing authenticity versus infatuation. It's important to understand that these phrases mean the most when they arise organically and consistently, not in grand speeches, not in moments of manipulation or flattery, but in quiet, unguarded moments of truth. Here are signs the phrases are genuine. Consistency. They're repeated in different contexts, not just in romantic moments. Emotionally grounded. They're paired with action, trust, vulnerability, growth, spontaneity. They feel real because they're not rehearsed. They're revealed. If someone is simply saying what they think you want to hear, the words will feel thin. They won't be backed by the emotional weight or behavioral alignment that makes these phrases so powerful. When they are genuine, however, they serve as road signs, pointing toward a deeper, more enduring kind of love. how these phrases evolve over time. In long-term age gap relationships, these phrases don't just disappear, they evolve. For example, I feel safe with you may become, I don't know what I'd do without your steady hand in my life. You've changed me may deepen into, loving you has made me more patient, more honest, and more at peace with myself. I wish we'd met sooner can transform into, I'm so glad we have the time we do. I'm not wasting a second of it. Over time, the emotional truth behind these phrases doesn't fade. It matures. It becomes the glue that keeps the relationship strong during inevitable challenges. And when new chapters of life unfold, career changes, health shifts, family transitions, those foundational truths remain constant. The larger lesson, love doesn't consult a calendar. At the heart of all this is a larger truth. Love doesn't ask how old you are. It asks who you are. These 11 phrases are not tied to age, they're tied to depth. And in many cases, it's the emotional experience, life perspective, and clarity of an older woman that draws these confessions out of a man who's ready for something real. This kind of love isn't about fantasy. It's about finding someone who brings out the best in you. Someone who grounds you, grows you, and gives you a sense of being truly seen. And when that happens, the age gap becomes secondary. What matters is, do I feel safe? Do I feel understood? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel loved as I am? If the answer is yes, then what you've found is real. The 11 phrases we've explored in this series are more than romantic words. They are evidence of emotional truth. When a man says these things, and more importantly, lives them, he's showing that his love for an older woman is built not on novelty, but on something profound. These are not lines. They are milestones. Moments where emotion becomes language, and language becomes legacy. So whether you've heard these words before, long to hear them in the future, or recognize them from your own story, remember, when love is real, it doesn't whisper. It speaks, and it tells the truth, even when no one's listening. Your turn. Have you heard any of these phrases in your own relationship? Did one of them hit home more than the others? Share your story, or simply reflect, because sometimes, reading the words we've felt but never said can be the most powerful form of connection of all. If you found this series insightful, don't forget to share it with someone who believes in love that transcends expectations. And remember, love doesn't ask how old you are. It asks how open your heart is. If this spoke to your heart, don't let it sit in silence. Share it with someone who believes in love that defies expectations. Subscribe for more real, raw, and emotionally intelligent takes on modern relationships and psychology-backed content. Save this video if you ever need a reminder that love, real love, doesn't care about age. It cares about depth, honesty, and transformation. Drop a comment. Have you heard any of these phrases before? Which one hit the hardest? Let's open up the conversation. Let's normalize love that's mature, soulful, and beautifully unconventional.